Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you please to take your seats, or as veterans of our national conventions would understand me when I say, will the Sergeant at Arms please clear the aisles? Ladies and gentlemen, will you please take your seats? Well, on behalf of the Republican committeemen of the northwest suburbs of Chicago and the northwest side of Chicago, and of the thousands of Republican Americans whom they represent, I am delighted to welcome you to the 2023 edition of the Lincoln Day Dinner. We are here tonight to celebrate certainly the memory of that great Illinoisan, that great Midwesterner, Abraham Lincoln, the first president elected of our party. It's a treat to know 150 years later there are still Lincoln partisans in the room. There are still Lincoln fans in the room. We're also here to celebrate what our party stands for in its message of freedom and the defense of a civilized society in our nation and in the world. And we are here tonight to celebrate our nation. And to do that properly, it is now my privilege to call upon the Honor Guard, who come to us from post 1983 of the American Legion, based in Schaumburg, Illinois. Commander Montag, post the colors. Thank you, gentlemen. These men served our country under arms, and we thank them to this day. It is now my privilege to call on Hannah Labatka. Ms. Labatka, are you nearby? Thank you, very nearby. Hannah Labatka will lead us in our national anthem. Hannah Labatka.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous night o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Hannah. That was lovely. And while I still have you standing, if you don't mind, Republicans are not ashamed of our loyalties, and we are very fond of renewing our allegiance to our nation and all that it stands for from time to time, and it's appropriate if we do that now. Let us do it together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. It is customary at these gatherings to invoke the blessings of the divine. And over the years, there's been a rotating group of clergy and other religious leaders who have led us. Tonight, our leaders have settled on a different approach to an invocation. And I'm going to ask you now, in just a moment, to direct your attention to the video screens, because what you're about to see is being called for our purposes tonight a meditation. It is in fact a rendition of a hymn, a well-known non-denominational hymn, set to a classic piece of English ecclesiastical music. This recording of the hymn was done at the start of the pandemic in a cathedral. I won't even name the name of the denomination, a cathedral in Sydney, Australia. And though the people you will see singing are antipodal, I think you will agree that they're really right side up, in the sense that the message that they're about to convey to us in song is one that is aimed precisely at people like us in our time, who are living in an age of great vexation and trial. I hope that you gain strength and inspiration from what you're about to see and hear, and then immediately after this we will have dinner, and I will return to you shortly with the program. Please roll the video, if you will. I'm back. I'm sorry to interrupt you the start of dinner, but I have just a few special introductions that I'd like to make. First of all, we are honored tonight here in this corner of paradise, in the northwest part of Cook County, by the leaders of our state Republican Party, and it's my privilege to recognize them now. With us tonight is the chairman of the Republican Party of Illinois, Don Tracy. Stand up, Don. From Cook County, the Republican National Committeeman of Illinois, Richard Porter. And although she is currently from Lake County, she is the pride of Tazewell County, Illinois, our National Committee woman, Demetra DeMonte. Demetra. Now, I'm about to ask people to undertake a little bit of exercise. There are a lot of people in the room, thank goodness, who are elected federal, state, and local officials, or elected party officials, or candidates for those offices. I would like, please, to ask everyone in the room who is currently an elected state, federal, state, or local official, or a party official, or a candidate for any of those offices, please to stand. Please stand now. Let us see you. Come on, stand up. Gosh, I hope there are a lot of you. If you're currently serving in elected or party office, thank you very much for your service to our country and our community. If you're a candidate or you're thinking of being a candidate for public office or for party office, I thank you even more, because you're the future of the country and the future of the party, and you're willing to take the risks of doing what's necessary in order to get us the leadership that we need. Need I remind you that if the best and the brightest among us do not step up and lead us, somebody else will. Think about that. If the best and brightest do not lead us, somebody else will. So I thank you. And now, with that in mind, I want to call attention to a special crop of candidates. Where's the leader of the ducklings? Dan Patlak, where are you and where are your brood? Dan, you're in the room somewhere. Dan, very good. I want to call attention to my friend Dan Patlak, a former elected official. He was for many years a member of the Board of Review in Cook County, a thankless job if ever there were one. So for the first time in your life, Dan, thank you for your public service. Dan and friends at places like the Illinois Policy Institute and elsewhere have been doing a very important work this cycle and the previous cycle in finding people willing to run for office as Republicans, particularly in state legislative elections, where in recent years, thanks to the phenomenon once known as the Speaker, Mike Madigan, and others of his ilk, there was such a monopoly of Democratic control that it was hard to find good candidates or candidates to run in opposition to the machine. Dan and his team have been working very hard to find such volunteers, people willing to carry the flag for the rest of us in these districts. And Dan, I'd like to ask you and the people you're working with, the candidates you're recruiting to carry the banner of the Republican Party and of the values of our country in the state legislative elections in 2024. Would you all please stand and let us know who you are? Where are you? Please, if you're one of these recruited candidates, thank you so much. There they are. Thank you. Stay standing for a moment. Stay standing. Thank you. Thank you for believing in your fellow citizens, that your fellow citizens will look at you and say you're worthy of a chance. Enough of them will to be able to, at a minimum, say thank you for the courage, the guts, and the belief in our country that you are displaying. What you're doing for all of us, not just in this room, but all across our county and our state and our country. Because if you people don't stand up and say you're going to represent us in the political hustings and in the legislature, then our country's lost. We can't have that. You are saving our country by doing what you do at the grassroots. So God bless you and Godspeed. We wish you well. And with that, I would like to call up one of the founders of the feast, the Republican Committee, the elected Republican Committeeman of Schaumburg Township, Joe Felici. Joe?
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for attending our 16th annual Lincoln Day dinner. I really appreciate it. And I'm not going to take too long, and please continue eating your salad while I speak. But I do hope you pay attention. Well, I want to thank everyone who's here tonight. I especially want to thank our speaker, United States Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa. She's a delight. I had the opportunity to talk to her for several minutes beforehand. And very down-to-earth, great person. And also our MC, Joe Morris, who always does a great job. So thank you both very much. Let me begin by saying it's gratifying to see so many of you who I've seen over the years at our many dinners. Most of you are repeats. If this is the first time you're here, great. We hope to see you at next year's dinner as well. But we do have a lot of repeats because it's such a great dinner. I'm prejudiced, but I think it's the best Lincoln Day dinner in the state. I want to point out that since we started this dinner 16 years ago, we have raised $1.9 million for our local organizations. Well, that's the gross, but actually they got about $1,250,000, which is very substantial. A lot of people think that our local organizations get funded by the state or federal parties, and they don't. It's up to us to raise our own money, and you're helping us with that, and we appreciate it. And of course, those funds help fund our election activities, and of course, we're going to be gearing up for the next election very shortly. Now, I'm just going to take a minute. I want to introduce the people who make this event possible, and I want to start with our executive committee. That includes Kathy Penner from Wheeling Township, right over here. She's co-chairman. And Katie Dolan-Bomber from Hanover. Katie does the beautiful program book that you see. Also, I'm quite prejudiced regarding the program book because I also think that's the best one in the state, and it's probably the largest as well. And then Ken Jochum. Ken is an elected official in Wheeling, and he's our candidate liaison from Wheeling Township. And lastly, Bob Vintage is our program coordinator. He's from Schaumburg. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, especially our major sponsor, Mr. Richard Uline. He's always a great sponsor for us, and we really appreciate it. And our platinum and silver table sponsors. All of the sponsor names have been rotating on the overhead, and they were on the entranceway as you entered the dinner. Next, I want to thank our supporting local township Republican committeemen who participate in the dinner. We have 9 townships that participate, or 9 Republican organizations. I'm not going to introduce their names, but if you would stand up. If you're a committeeman in one of our supporting township organizations, please stand up. There's 9 of them. They're scattered throughout. I'm getting close to the end here, so you can get on to the rest of your dinner, but the 2024 election season is just around the corner, and our local organizations are gearing up for it. We can always use more volunteers, and if you are so inclined, please contact your local organization to help. Well, that's about it. Enjoy your dinner, and Joe Morris will be back shortly. And I'll be back in a little while to show the results of our mega raffle and to announce our presidential poll results. If you have not bought your mega raffle tickets, the ticket sellers will be circulating throughout the room for the next several minutes. And also, you're encouraged to cast your presidential ballot, which we will pick up in probably about 15 minutes. The only thing I caution you on the ballot is that you must vote only once. If you vote more than once, the ballot will be disqualified. And we hope to have the ballot results by the end of the evening, so you want to stick around for that. Again, thank you and enjoy your dinner.
If I may ask you please to return to your seats, we're going to resume the program. If you'd be kind enough to return to your seats, we're going to resume the program. This is the big event, the main event about to happen. So please return to your seats. As many of you know, I spent a lot of time working for and with Ronald Reagan. All these years later, it's a pleasure to know that there's still a lot of Reagan fans, a lot of Lincoln fans in the room, and a lot of Reagan fans in the room. I was with him for many years in the 1976 campaign, the 1980 campaign, and then all 8 years of his presidency. And one of the reasons why I'm very happy, really privileged to be at this dinner every year is because it was a man from the northwestern suburbs. In fact, it was Joe Felici's predecessor, a couple times removed, a fellow by the name of Don Totten, whose memory is sacred to me. Don Totten was one of Ronald Reagan's early friends and one of his great organizers, not just in Illinois, but across the country. And it was Don Totten, whom I got to know when I was a college kid, who introduced me to President Reagan and Ed Meese and President Reagan's team and made that such an important part of my life. And I associate that always with Schaumburg and the Northwest Townships because they made that wonderful introduction. There was a lot of wisdom in Ronald Reagan. There was an attitude at the time among the news media. Several of the Washington talking heads will come to mind who dismissed him as a mere amiable dunce. And in the years that have followed since his presidency and all that we learned and saw during the Reagan presidency, we learned even more about him as a man and as a thinker when his diaries became public and were edited and published, and when his wonderful pre-presidential weekly radio commentaries were compiled and edited and published. There was extraordinarily smart stuff in those documents, and the amazing thing is he had no ghostwriters. He wrote all that stuff himself. The wisdom included the proposition that Mr. Reagan, who was a former Democrat, did not leave his party left him. Remember when he said that? As I look around the room, I see some prominent former Democrats in the room. And I want you to say we don't view you with hostility or suspicion, we view you with welcome. It's never too soon, but it's never too late. Welcome to the party of Lincoln and Reagan. Mr. Reagan also said a couple of other things that are important for this room and for us as a party. Anyone who agrees with me 80% of the time is my friend and not my enemy. All right? The Reagan 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of thy fellow Republican. And a little maxim Mr. Reagan actually had on his desk in the Oval Office. There's no limit to how much you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. That was the natural intelligence of Ronald Reagan. A lot of people today are worried about artificial intelligence. There's a big buzz, coast to coast, about the dangers, the perils of artificial intelligence. I want to tell you that it's nothing to worry about. And in fact, there's a lot of artificial intelligence out there right in front of us every single day. There's a huge artificial intelligence shop working in Washington, D.C. It's called Joe Biden's speechwriting staff. So if you want to know what artificial intelligence looks like, you need look no farther than the White House. Now, you can learn a lot just by watching people, even in a room like this. Richard Porter, how far is it to the border of Iowa? About 250 miles. Kathy Penner, is there an Iowa voter in the room besides the woman sitting next to you that you know of? Probably not. Well, if we don't clean the voting rolls, who knows, right? But we're far, far away from the borders of Iowa and from any Iowa voter. But if you were paying attention, the lady it is now my great privilege to introduce, during the course of dinner, stepped away from her food and walked around the room. She walked around the room to meet you, to meet many of you, face to face. You're not going to vote for her for the Senate in Iowa. And she made a special beeline to that table that I recognized earlier of the fresh-faced, I'm not going to say unwashed because they're clearly washed, the fresh-faced and freshly washed faces of people who are volunteering to be first-time candidates for us and our state and our country. She went to talk to them, to encourage them. Now, if that's not a sign of national leadership, I don't know what is. National leadership outside her own state, but working at the grassroots. That tells you probably everything you need to know about Joni Ernst. Be patient, I'll tell you a little bit more. She is United States Senator for the state of Iowa. Iowa came into the United States of America through the Louisiana Purchase. Mr. Jefferson engineered that with the French Empire. As the French Empire, as empires do, was crumbling. Napoleon needed to get rid of all this vast land in North America, and Mr. Jefferson cut a deal. That history, that heritage of Iowa as one-time French territory is remembered to this day. You will see it when you see Joni Ernst. She's wearing crossed pins on her lapel. The flag of the United States crossed with the flag of the state of Iowa. And the basic pattern of the flag of the state of Iowa is the flag of France because of that French heritage. And if you know and love American history, you know that from the time of our founding, we owe an incredible debt to the people of France who stood up with us at the time of our revolution, helped us finance it, sent their fleet to help stay off the British fleet as American forces carried off their extraordinary victories on land. And the people of Iowa to this day remember those aspects of their French heritage. That's why you will see what seems to be a French flag on the lapel of Joni Ernst. Now, you might think, therefore, that the French were the first country to recognize the independent United States. If you go to the lobby of the State Department in Washington, D.C., it has been my privilege and my pain to go there many, many times, you will see around the lobby posted in order of the recognition of the independence and sovereignty of the United States, the flags of all the nations of the world with whom we have diplomatic relations. And the very first flag, the flag in the point of pride, is the flag of the first nation that recognized the independent United States of America after we declared our independence. And there are probably some people in the room who know the answer to this question. Who was that country? Somebody shout it out. France. No, it was not France. It was not Italy. Morocco. It was Morocco, an African, a Muslim nation, a Muslim kingdom in Africa, in the Middle East, whose king sent out a word that when the Moroccan naval ships encountered ships flying the flag of the newborn United States, they should dip the Moroccan flag in honor to the sovereignty of the United States of America. So America's relations with the Middle East go back a long, long way. And something you need to know about Joni Ernst and her background is, yes, she's an Iowa farm girl. She grew up in rural parts of Iowa. She has done what people in this room have done. She worked at the precinct level in her home county. She was her home county auditor. She served in her state legislature. She dealt with state legislative issues representing the people of Iowa. She worried about the meaning of her state constitution. And that helped prepare her for the work that she's done since her election in 2014 as United States Senator for the state of Iowa, where she's then gone to work for all of us in Washington, D.C., bringing the wisdom, the natural intelligence of the heartland to the business of the people in Washington on Capitol Hill. But to get back to the Middle East, in addition to all the other things that she has done as farmer, as small business person, as local official, as state official, as party official, above all as wife and mother, she has also served us in the Middle East, wearing boots. Because the lady I'm about to present to you is not just Senator Ernst, she's not just Mrs. Ernst, she's Colonel Ernst, United States Army Reserve. This petite, feminine, intellectual lady headed up the largest battalion that the Iowa National Guard sent to fight in the Middle East. She's a mistress, a master of logistics. She knows how to get things done. It is a pleasure for us in her neighboring state to welcome her to speak to us in Illinois, to show her that Illinois is not devoid of Republicans. Now, I have one little secret to tell you, Joni Ernst. The people of Illinois who love the heritage and the history of Abraham Lincoln know that Mr. Lincoln was born on the 12th of February. And you might wonder, why do we celebrate Lincoln's birthday in the middle of August? And the answer, Senator Ernst, is it's a lot easier to get people to come to dinner in the middle of the summer than it is in the middle of the winter in Illinois, as you well know, being our neighbor to the west. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege to present you a friend of the Republican Party here in Cook County, a national leader, someone important to all of us, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. Thank you so much. Well, you're wonderful too, and you're going to show it right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, God bless you all. Wow, I didn't know. I honestly did not know there were please sit down. This many Republicans in Illinois. Thank you. But most of you have either attended the University of Iowa or sent your children there. So thank you for supporting our great state. I really do appreciate being here with you. It is truly a privilege. And thank you, Joe, for such a wonderful and kind introduction. And the hospitality here has been fantastic, folks. I love my home state of Iowa, and I can say you here in Illinois are a reflection of the people that I know and love in my great state. So thank you so much for being so welcoming to me. I truly do appreciate it. Thank you. So Joe touched on a few things that are really important to me, and I actually used them as a slogan when I was running in 2014. My slogan was Mother, Soldier, Leader. And I am retired now, so now it's Mother, Veteran, Leader. But as a mother, I have been blessed with one daughter, and that one daughter, as Kathy and I were visiting about, that one daughter went off to school at West Point, the United States Military Academy. And thank you. And so she has finished her schooling there now. She is a second lieutenant serving in Georgia, active duty Army. And her husband also is a lieutenant serving active duty Army. But it has been such a great privilege for me to serve under the cloth of our great United States of America. And a lot of people will see me as a United States Senator and think that is the pinnacle of everything that I have done, the most prestigious position that I have ever served in. But honestly, folks, I have to say that serving as a soldier in the United States Army, in the Iowa Army National Guard, and the Army Reserves truly was the greatest honor of my life. Truly. And I am so thankful that as a mother, I can see my daughter also moving through the ranks of our great United States Army. So I did serve 23 years between the Army Reserves and the Iowa Army National Guard. Again, it was an incredible privilege, but it was just extraordinary to be able to deploy to serve in Operation Iraqi Freedom and share that experience with so many young men and women that truly believed in our country and our country's mission in the Middle East. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the global war on terror here in just a moment, so we'll revisit that. But as a leader as well, the Army really did teach me about leadership. And leadership is not about a title, so let's just dismiss that. Leadership is not about being a senator. It is not about being a colonel. It is not about being a committeeman. It is not that. It is not a title. The Army defines a leader as someone who will inspire others to a common goal or objective for the good of the unit or the organization. And folks, yes, what we are lacking today in the United States of America is a leader, someone who will inspire for the good of our nation towards a common goal or objective. And folks, that's what we have to rectify in 2024. Let's elect a leader. So every day I am in Washington, D.C., and even spending time at home in Iowa, I am fighting every day to take Iowa common sense out to that bubble, that universe, that echo chamber, the swamp, whatever you want to call it. I'm fighting every day to take good Midwestern values out to Washington, D.C., and it can be a bit rough. I think you all know that. It can be very rough. But there's some areas that we really need to focus on as we are thinking about the security of the United States of America. And I'm going to talk about 4 of those areas this evening. First is going to be energy security. How many of you think that we should be focused on producing our own energy right here in the United States of America? Oh, yeah, I'm with ya. Okay, so what did we hear today? What is this administration under Joe Biden now doing to the permitting process in Alaska? Boo. Boo, boo, boo. Yes, so under the Trump administration, we were able to move forward with permitting processes for natural gas and oil in Alaska. And today, President Biden has reversed that, taking away that permitting process that had been allowed so that we as Americans could produce more of our own energy. But this administration is very selective on the kind of energy that they want us to use here in the United States. Anything that's related to fossil fuels, forget it, folks. Forget it. Instead, what should we focus on? It's all renewables all the time. What'd you say, Joe? Hot air. Yes. Well, actually, that works really well in Iowa because we do have all those wind turbines. But renewable energies. And, if you think about, and I apologize, if anybody drives an electric vehicle in the room, that's fine. It's about consumer choice, right? That's what it should be about, consumer choice. But what we are seeing with this administration is the mandate that at X date in the future, you will drive an electric vehicle. There will be no choice. But what I'm confounded by is the rationale that we can't produce our own energy here in the United States because fossil fuels are dirty. They are so dirty, right? We hear it all the time from the administration. And yet we have the push for electric vehicles. Where do those batteries come from? So we have batteries for electric vehicles that require rare earth elements and critical minerals that are being mined in countries like Congo using child and slave labor. Not to mention the mining that is done there, and you can imagine because it's the Chinese that are doing the mining. They're in charge of the mining. It's not green. It is not earth-friendly. Yet we're totally reliant upon the Chinese to produce these batteries for the electric vehicles using child and slave labor. All of the rare earth elements, the critical minerals that we should be able to produce here in the United States, and we can't produce everything. We'll have to partner with other countries. But even if we could produce them here in the United States, this administration will not allow us to produce in the United States. Because it's easier when you have a climate ideology like this administration, it's easy to pretend it's not happening anywhere else. As long as it's not in the United States, we're going to consider it green, even though it's harming the environment in other countries. So here we are reliant upon the Chinese. We're using these batteries that they are producing, and it just emboldens our adversaries. It's enriching the Chinese, and it's putting our own businesses to rest here in the United States. We lose jobs when we lose out on energy production. So we have got to start fighting for energy security here in the United States. So the next part of securing our country, and something that I hope many of us will agree with, and I'm going to make probably a 100% bet here that you are in agreement, but don't you think we should have a secure southern border? Okay, so border security, right? Okay, so far in this administration, Joe Biden's administration, we have seen 5.8 million illegal entries into the United States. 5.8. Okay, the population of Illinois, you're over 12 million, right? Think about it, folks. That's about half of your population just in the past 2 years. Wow. In Iowa, our population is 3.2 million. 3.2. That means we have had well over the population of my home state entering into the United States illegally. So we had purchased the materials necessary for a border wall, okay, barrier, call it whatever you want. We had already purchased that in the last administration. Well, what is happening with those border materials now? It's a garage sale. Absolutely correct. We are selling those materials for pennies on the dollar, what we paid. We are selling them. And yet I had a plan that was supported by many of my Republican colleagues to take those materials that have already been purchased as a federal government and turn them over to the states that apply for them along our southern border. Many of those states want to construct a barrier to prevent illegal entries. I didn't have any Democratic co-sponsors on that legislation. But it seemed reasonable that if we didn't construct it as a federal government, that our states would be allowed to. We've already spent the money. Let's allow them to do it. So we were talking earlier, a number of us that met before this dinner, and fentanyl came up. And so not only do we need to be concerned about who is crossing illegally into the country, because we know it's not all just good, hardworking people that want to secure jobs here in the United States. We know that there are a number of people that are identified on our terror watch list that have entered into the United States illegally, which is a huge concern. But we also have unprecedented levels of fentanyl coming into the country from Mexico. Fentanyl overdoses. It's the number one leading cause of death with young adults ages 18 to 44. I do a 99 county tour every year in Iowa. I visit every county every year. And I had just finished up a town hall in one of my counties in eastern Iowa, not all that far from Illinois. And the sheriff that was there, he stayed and visited with me afterwards, and he said, Senator, he said, we're seeing it here now. It's a really rural area. And he said, it's really concerning when in an area like ours, we see fentanyl pouring in. And I know it's touching your communities as well. You know, and it knows no boundaries, folks. It's touching every different socioeconomic category of family, individuals, youth, adults, seniors. And we've got to find a way to stop it. First stopping it, secure the border. Secure the border. We've got to do it. There's so many reasons we need to secure the border. We are a sovereign nation, the last time I checked. Okay, so we have energy security, we've got border security. How about a hand for national security? So, again, I served for 23 years, and I really loved serving my country. I was driven to serve just as my daughter is driven to serve, just as Kathy's daughter is driven to serve, your son is driven to serve. All of you that have served, thank you, and God bless you for raising your right hand. So, what have we seen with the military under Joe Biden's presidency? Okay, complete disaster, right? Okay, so we hear about wokeism in the military. That is an issue. We are struggling to recruit into our military, folks. It is so hard to get people to enlist. And I don't care what service it is across the board. We are finding that our youth there are some traditional reasons people can't enlist. Maybe they don't meet the physical requirements. Maybe they're not meeting the educational standard to serve. But there are so many issues out there. And when I talk to our recruiters in Iowa and find out why people aren't choosing to serve, it does come back to, well, I don't know that I trust the leadership of the military. They're focusing on things that I don't agree with, going back to the wokeism. They're focusing so heavily on some of these ideologies that they have forgotten that the focus of our military is to be the most lethal fighting force on the face of the planet. And if we don't get back to that mentality, we will not be able to defend our nation. So we have got to get back to a point where we are focusing on recruitment. We're focusing on military readiness. We are focusing on providing the type of equipment that makes our men and women in uniform lethal, but also protects them. So that if we have to send them forward in our nation's time of need, I as a senator, you as communities, know that we're going to bring them home safely. And we are not seeing that from this president. So instead, what is the Biden administration focusing on? They're focusing on a lot of ideology. Number one within the military is actually climate ideology. What? In our military. Climate ideology. So President Biden, last year he came out with this plan in the military that he was going to transition the entire non-tactical vehicle fleet to what? All electric. Yes. And that was just the beginning. He wanted to take the non-tactical vehicle fleet, transition it to all electric vehicles, and then go ahead and work on the rest of our vehicles. The vehicles that my soldiers and I drove through Kuwait and Iraq. Okay, so let's think about it, folks. I was a transportation officer in Operation Iraqi Freedom. My soldiers were mechanics. They were truck drivers. You know, I did a number of those missions pushing up into Iraq at the beginning of the war in 2003. I just really can't get it into my mind, you know, doing these routes, rolling up, you know, Tampa or Miami or any of these supply routes that we had established and saying, holy cow, I need to pull over and charge. Excuse me, Mr. Iraqi, where's the nearest charging station? I've got a convoy here. We need to charge. Okay, folks, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But that's what this administration literally is pushing in our military as one of their top priorities. So I follow West Point. Obviously, I follow West Point on Instagram, on Facebook, and I was just scrolling through some of the reels the other day on Instagram, and I noticed that the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Defense had visited West Point. And I was really excited about that. I feel she is a strong leader, so I was curious. What is she talking about with the cadets at West Point? So I scrolled through. What was it she was talking about at West Point? Climate. Climate. How do we combat climate change? Talking to our cadets. That to me is not inspiring. These young men and women are going through rigorous studies at the United States Military Academy so that we can defend ourselves against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And yet we're talking about climate ideology. I was so disappointed. I screenshot it so that I could discuss it with my staff in DC and figure out how do we combat this and get back to the standards that will enable us to defend ourselves against our adversaries around the globe, because that's what we need to focus on. So that's national security. We did just also have an anniversary, and I'm going to touch on this because I said I would come back to the global war on terror. And I get asked about this frequently since I had served in what we call GWAT. And we had the anniversary, the second anniversary of the fall of Abbey Gate. And I know that many of you are aware of the 13 service members that lost their lives at Abbey Gate. And it breaks my heart. And I spent many days crying after Abbey Gate had occurred because one of the Marines that was lost at Abbey Gate, his mother and I grew up together in little old Montgomery County in southwest Iowa. So Dagan spent the first 5 years of his life in Montgomery County. He was being raised there in Red Oak, Iowa, which is my hometown. And it was devastating. And I just knew when I heard that there was a bombing, something in me was triggered. And next thing I knew, I got a text from my best friend back home in Red Oak. And she said, Wendy's son was killed in Afghanistan. And you know, folks, those families do not have peace. And they will not have peace until we have a commander-in-chief that will reckon with the fact that he made a poor decision that endangered the lives of our military servicemen and women. And he will not admit that. Before we came in tonight, I got a text from one of my staff members in D.C. that said General McKenzie, who was the Central Command commander at the time, General McKenzie had just done an interview with Jen Griffin. Now, she's with Fox News. And he came right out at the beginning. And he's retired now. He's retired. So guess what? He can talk. So he came right out and said that our commander-in-chief, President Joe Biden, disregarded the advice that had been given to him by the military officers in charge, right out the gate. And I'm so thankful that General McKenzie did that. Maybe it will give these folks some peace. But God bless them all. May they rest in peace. And may we always say their names so we never forget. Dagan William Tyler Page, young man from Red Oak, Iowa. So anyway, God rest his soul and all those that have given their lives in the global war on terror. And I've told all of those Gold Star families that lost loved ones that their loss was not in vain. And the service of our servicemen and women was not in vain during the global war on terror. They kept us safe for 20 years, and we're so thankful for that. So we're going to keep fighting out there, fighting for these men and women to make sure that we're protecting them as much as they are protecting us. And then lastly, folks, on security issues, economic security, right? Look around. What's happening to our communities? It is devastating out there with Bidenomics. And I don't care what that president says out there on the news, what he's trying to spin. We all know what he has done to the economy has hurt American families. I see it every day in my communities in Iowa. We're paying more for gas. We're paying more for groceries. I have a neighbor that works a full-time job. His wife works a full-time job, but God bless him. He's got 6 mouths to feed. He's working a second job now at Hy-Vee, stocking grocery store shelves. He didn't have to do that before President Biden, but he's doing it now. And he is a hardworking soul. You know, we see more and more families doing that. So for heaven's sakes, folks, we're $32 trillion plus in debt. We've got to stop spending and we've got to stop borrowing. And we've got to figure this out. So what some of you have been talking about, I'm going to touch on this because it's really struck a nerve with me. Some of you saw that I was on Harris Faulkner yesterday, and I was talking about our federal workforce and an initiative that I have. So right now, folks, are we still in COVID? Are we in COVID? Then why the heck are the people in Washington, D.C. not working at their offices? Right? Too much Kool-Aid. Yeah. So all of these folks are still teleworking. Are they really teleworking? No. Okay. So the Office of Personnel Management did a survey. This is recently. They just did a survey. 1 out of 3 bureaucrats has returned full-time to the office. The other 2 out of 3 still working from home. And maybe I should say working in air quotes, from home. Because what we have unearthed is that many of these employees that are working from home are actually out at the dog park, or they're caught, literally, we caught one, and I'm going to use the picture here someday on the floor of the Senate, and I hope I don't offend people, but it was a man taking a bubble bath with his big old hairy legs sticking out of the tub. He literally took a picture, his laptop sitting on the ledge of the bathtub, and the caption was, "This is my office for the next hour." And he's sitting there in his bubble bath. Well, he evidently had some coworkers that didn't like that because they screenshot it and then sent it to the news. So we have people, they're taking bubble baths when they should be working. They're out at the dog park. They're out hitting tea time, on the golf course. And we're paying them. You are paying them. You are paying their salaries, and they are not working. We don't need them, do we? Okay? So if they're not working, we don't need them. If they're not in the office, we don't need that office space. So get rid of the leased office space. Let's consolidate operations if we have to, and get rid of this expensive property in Washington, D.C. I am fed up. I am absolutely fed up with people taking advantage of this system. So, what have I done about it? I have sent out letters to all 24 of our agencies and departments to their Office of Inspector Generals. And I anticipate within the next couple of weeks, we will have some pretty telling responses from those agencies about how much of the workforce is still working from home. Number two big issue for me is how many of those employees that are getting location-based pay for residing in Washington, D.C., how many of them no longer live in D.C., but are getting paid more than where they are located now. So we've got a lot of digging to do. So we asked for some information, and Open the Books is a great organization. They really file a lot of freedom of information requests. So they do this just about every year. They want to know, where are people working? And normally when we get that request back, they will redact certain names and workplaces. Okay, and that is normally around 3,000 names that will be redacted. A lot of that is probably the folks that work for our intelligence agencies or otherwise. Okay, guess how many names were redacted this year when we got the information back? Who said 300,000? 281,000 names and workplaces were redacted. 281,000 that the administration doesn't want us to know where they are working. Okay, something fishy there. So we are going after that hot and heavy. We're going to take care of that. I'm also working on an effort to audit the IRS, because we've all got problems with the IRS. 1,250, yeah, thank you, ma'am. You're my favorite person tonight. Yeah, thank you. So 1,250 IRS personnel have not paid taxes. Okay, they work for the IRS. A little ironic. Okay, so we're going to start auditing them. At least that's my push. Okay, so I'm gonna end, and I get a little forceful with this too. So patriotism, folks. All of you, God bless you. You are patriots. Thank you for standing up for our nation. It is incredible when we hear about the polls that are published out there with young people today. Barely over 30% or so of our young Americans believe that America is actually worth fighting for. That is disheartening. We have got to do better. We see indoctrination through our universities, through our school systems. We need our parents to be engaged. We need our communities to be engaged. But we also need to be talking, all of us. It's on all of us to get out there and talk about why we believe in the United States of America, why it is the greatest nation on the face of the planet, the opportunities that we are able to provide for every citizen of this country, where we believe in equal opportunity, not equal outcome, as my friend Tim Scott would say. Equal opportunity. Every child here in the United States has opportunity to become something bigger and better and do more with their lives than the generation before. We have got to believe it, and we've got to communicate it to this up-and-coming generation. We just can't allow them to exist in these doldrums where they think America is failing and that we are a horrible nation. Because I can tell you, folks, I have traveled around this globe and I have seen nations that hunger for freedom. They hunger for liberty. We have that here. On our worst days, we are far better than any other country around the globe. So I served in the military again. It was 23 years. And anytime I wore my uniform and I was out and about, somebody would say, "Thank you for your service." Or if I wear my Soldier for Life pin, somebody will say, "Thank you for your service." And I just want to end on this, because the normal response is, you're welcome, or just thank you back. But I've started getting into the habit now of just really pushing it back to that person. So to all of you, so many people have said, "Thank you for your service." And you know what I have started saying recently is, you are worth it. You are worth it. Every last one of you in this room, even every last one of the Democrats that are out there in Illinois, they are worth it. I'm not wrong. I am not wrong. They are worth it. Because, and I'll just tell you, we have the opportunity to spread our message to them, right? They are not a lost cause. We have to communicate clearly, and especially to the younger generation, why the Republican Party matters, why our platform matters, why we are the ones that will produce a leader in 2024 that will right all of these wrongs. So I know deep in my heart that our country is worth it. And every one of you, you are worth it. Okay? So don't think you're not. Don't think that you can be defeated. To every one of these candidates that is stepping up and running in tough districts, thank you, because you know your constituents are worth it. They deserve great representation. We are the Republicans that can do that. You will go out, you will spread your message. So whether you win or not, believe me, folks, every time we put a Republican name on that ballot, we are going to get our message out there into areas that we haven't gone into before. Take our message where we are not. That's what we have to do. We're going to go out. You are going to share your message. You're going to knock on the door of somebody who has never been contacted by a Democrat or a Republican. And they're going to say, "You know what? You're spending time with me. You're answering my questions, and I actually agree with you. And you are going to bring more and more Republicans into our party." That's what we have to do. It's on us. And we are all worth it. We are worth the time and the energy to put into these initiatives to bring more people into the fold of the great GOP. So America is worth it. America is worth it. We are not going to fold because America is worth it. And it is up to us to make sure it happens, right? So thank you all so much. God bless you all. Go on with a good fight. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Stay with us here. We have an award that we want to present. All right. This is our Spirit of Lincoln Award, presented by the Northwest Suburban Cook County Republican Lincoln Day Dinner, September 7th, 2023, to Joni Ernst, United States Senator, Iowa, for her commitment to public service and pursuit of government accountability.
Nice. Thanks, Joe. Thank you so much. Yes. Oh, yes. God bless you. Thank you.
Okay, so what the rest of the evening is going to be, we're going to do the mega raffle now, then we'll do the presidential poll results. And also we want to mention that the Senator has agreed to have a group of, if you are a Republican, well, of course you'd be a Republican. If you're a woman who has run for office in the past or hold or held elective office as a Republican or are running as a Republican, we're going to do a photo with her in the front. So when we're finished with the results of the presidential poll, please come up. Additionally, we're going to have a photo. I'd like to ask the Republican committeemen in our host townships to come up as well as our executive committee. But let's begin with the mega raffle drawing. Kathy, you want to come up? Okay, so just everybody's on the same page. The first one we pick is for $2,000. The second one is for $500, and the third one is for $250. Winner need not be present.
Mike Baumer.
Oh, Mike, you won $2,000. Mike is from Hanover.
Ready for the next one?
Yep. Dig deep. Terry Schmidt from Schaumburg. Terry, you win $500.
Last one.
Last one for $250. Oh boy. Greg Bear from Schaumburg, $250. All right.
I'm going to sit down.
Okay. Okay, those of you who won, I think I have addresses for everybody. I do. You'll get your checks sometime in the next year or two. No, you'll get your checks in the next week. Okay, now we have the presidential poll results, which were provided to me in a hermetically sealed envelope. Those of you who remember Johnny Carson when he was on TV, he would do like this, you know. Okay, the results. With 47% of the vote, Donald Trump. With 22% of the vote, Ron DeSantis. And with 13%, I'm sorry, with 11% of the vote, third place with 11% of the vote, Nikki Haley. Everybody else is in, I guess the next closest was Vivek Ramaswamy, and then everybody else is like 1% or so. So we'll be publishing these on our website, and I've got a press release going out tonight, and so hopefully it'll be in the papers tomorrow. Okay, I think, Joe, do we have anything else? I think that concludes. I appreciate everybody coming here. Drive carefully. Again, if you're a Republican woman who has run for office or is running for office, current elected official or past, come up front for your picture. Committeemen also in a separate shot. Thank you all very much.